Hello and good morning, 3B. Happy Monday to you. Hope you're having a wonderful morning. Had a good weekend as well. Do me a favor, as always, if you could drop your name in the chat. Let me know that you're with us today. Ryan, I think you're the first again. Good for you, man. Thanks for being here. Good morning. Luke, hello and welcome. Taylor, good morning. Boop, 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 doo, doo. Alyssa, Julia, hello and welcome. Good morning. Dan and Emily, hello. And someone left already. Emily, hello, good morning. Okay. So how's everyone doing today? That good, huh? All right, if you're just joining us now, make sure you drop your name in that chat so I know that we were here at some point. Probably check in again at the end of class. Got a few quick announcements we'll get through, and then light discussion on your assignment from last week before we branch into the assignment for this week. It's not... How do I put this? It's not a complicated assignment by any stretch of the imagination, but there are some specific details I want to make sure that we go over and you guys understand. James is here, Mike is here, Nick is here. Hey, Nick, how we doing? Matt, welcome. Mike, welcome. What's good? Everything's good right now. Trying to stay positive. Got lots to do today on my end work-wise. Got some planning to do for your guys' next assignment after the one we get to today. Both of these assignments, just as a heads up, James, welcome. They're going to be a little bit, like I'm going to give you more time to do. That doesn't mean necessarily that they're going to take a substantial amount of time, but we're going to be trying some things today, or with our project I'll announce today, that I just want to make sure there's a buffer on time-wise. And the assignment we're going to do next is, I think, and I haven't heard anything official yet at all, but I would not be surprised if we are still out of the building next week. And so I've got a assignment that I'm hoping is going to just put a bow on our broadcasting journalism unit, and then we're going to have to shift gears a little bit to what would be next. And that's going to be challenging, but that's for me to figure out how to do best for you. All right, so we're going to move into some things, but I wanted to hear from you guys, so I'm going to ask this question, and then I'll pause to let you guys chat in the chat. What did you think of the newscast that you watched for your assignment? And I'm just curious if, and you can answer this one of three ways. Did you feel that at the end of that hour you were more informed? Did you think at the end of that hour you were as informed as you were going in? Or did you think that somehow you were less informed by what you saw? I'm going to pause for a second, give you guys a second to put that in the chat. Nick, good. I'm glad. What about everybody else? Yeah, Emily, I would understandably so. I'm hoping, though, in some capacity, there were like subsects of that because it's not just here's Corona, but like here's Corona in different parts of the world, maybe different parts of our country. Here's what the president said. Here's what our governor said. Here's how it's affecting the economy. Like those are all related to the same thing, but are kind of somewhat different stories. Luke is just as informed. It was mainly on the coronavirus. Aiden, good morning and welcome. Lucas didn't do it. I appreciate your honesty. I'm going to comment on our assignments in just a bit here. Um, the other things they talked about were pointless. Interesting, Alyssa. What else did they talk about that you thought wasn't as important? All right. Well, I'm hoping we're getting an answer from Alyssa because I'm very curious as to what she thought was pointless there. Um, so here is. Oh, there we go. How to count your. Okay. All right. Well, I wouldn't. Okay. How to count your toilet paper? I would be curious to actually see that because I'm sure it was probably pretty silly. Um, Mixing cleaning product supplies is toxic. Interesting. I saw that floating around on social media, both on Facebook and Twitter. Um, and I think I wouldn't say pointless. Remember, not everyone has the same intellect or intelligence that maybe some of us do, and so their goal in trying to makeshift clean their house with what they have ahead of them or in front of them or around them. Could be informative. I mean, listen, if that story saved one life, then it did its job. So, if you're smart enough to know I'm not going to mix that stuff together, great. But not everyone's as smart as we are, and so there's a public service there. There's a health element to that. So I wouldn't say pointless, but maybe because you had already known that information. Um, Aiden, I appreciate your frankness. All right. So let's Nick policing as always. Okay, so here's the one thing that I wanted to you guys to take away from this. Emily, you would be super surprised how how little people know about hygiene. All right, just think about some of the people that you would go to school with every day. Think about people that realistically maybe aren't as well off and don't have the luxury of hygiene products. I mean, there's a very strong or even local population of our areas that they can't afford things like deodorant and shampoo or toothpaste, and those may seem like simple or basic amenities to you, but not to everyone. There are people who have their water shut off because they can't pay the bill, and they can't do laundry, they can't do dishes, they can't bathe. Those are very real things, and they may not be super prevalent in our area, but that doesn't mean they're not prevalent in other areas in our state or in our country. So remember, the idea, one of the reasons why I wanted to put this project out there is just to get that exposure and perspective on outside of the little Hazlitt bubble that we tend to be in, what's going on in and around the world. And yes, it all may be very related right now, but it doesn't mean that it impacts everybody the same way. And even in talking to my parents, my dad is just like, hey, I'm above 60. So yeah, I'm a little scared right now. Like it just trying to get a different perspective on things. And for the folks that answered whether they were more informed, as informed, or less informed, no one said they were less informed. And the exposure to what's going on, whether it's around one situation like it is currently in our world, or whether it's about many, the news is meant to inform in some capacity. And so I'm hoping that you either heard things or reaffirmed things that you knew or saw elsewhere, and said, oh, okay, yeah, I did see that toxicity cleaning supply thing earlier, and now the news is reporting on it. Okay, great. Or maybe you got some information, even if it was one or two things that you weren't sure on or didn't know. Now you know. All right, it informed you. You are enlightened. And I'm going to pause again for a second. For those of you that did the assignment, and then I'll comment to everyone and those who did not do the assignment, was the 1 hour of news difficult to sit through? Like, did it challenge you because maybe parts of it weren't as interesting, or because you're not used to watching something for that long? So I'm going to pause. I would just curious your feedback on that. While I adjust for headroom. And flip my record. Emily says a little repetitive with some stories. Mike says some stories were boring. Okay. Yeah, they usually weren't that long, and I think you'll find outside of a few reports, and that's why I asked you to just kind of keep a rough estimate of the duration. A lot of the stories are relatively short, because the more that they can get through, the better. Really boring, says Leanna. Okay. Well, so, and I'm not surprised to hear you folks say that. And I think what becomes interesting is not to play like the parent card. As you get older and more things in the world pertain to you directly or specifically, you tend to take a stronger interest in that. But even then, not everything is interesting to you, or more of it may pertain to you, but not necessarily all of it. And so part of the reason why I chose an hour-long broadcast was twofold. One, we've been trying to emulate what it's like to do a broadcast in class. And so most traditional news broadcasts are structured after a news hour. The second reason is because I was hoping to some degree that, not unbearable, it would be a little challenging to watch and sit through. And part of that rationale was to have you understand, as we've talked about over the course of this week and our unit as a whole, is that being an active, participating citizen, all right, who is enlightened and well-informed, takes effort. Like it takes energy to say, okay, I'm gonna watch the news so that I, as a citizen of the United States, can be informed about what's going on in our area, in our country, and in our world. That doesn't normally happen passively, and so I think it's really important to get that experience, or I don't want to say practice, but perspective on what it takes to be an informed citizen. It is our responsibility to be as informed and educated on things as possible. So that's part of that reason. Now, I'm going to piggyback on that to those that did not complete the assignment, and then everyone as a whole. So I understand that you guys are going through this digital experience new for the first time, as are many, if not all, of your teachers, myself included. So in continuing the traditions that we would do in class, I'm trying to find stuff that I think is in your best interest to do that still is related to the class as a whole. And you'll see that in your project that we get to today. But knowing that, after this assignment, okay, the one that was due today, so for the, let me check real quick, for the 11 people that didn't do it, all right, there will be an opportunity to get that in, okay, by Wednesday, okay, at no penalty whatsoever. So there's still time to get that done, all right? You still have the flexibility to watch a news hour when you have that hour available, okay? But I've been saying to all my classes, and I started last Friday, and it's going to continue today, all right? Part of our job is to make sure that not only are you on top of your stuff, but you're on top of managing your schedule. And so the only way that I can hold people accountable for coming to these live streams, and thank you for checking in, thank you for your conversation during, is to make sure that work is getting completed on time. And so after this assignment that was due today, which I'll extend to Wednesday, all right, with no penalty, anything that gets assigned from here on out, all right, if it is turned in late, will go to half credit, all right? And so you have a lot more flexibility in your day. The way I look at it as this, all right, teachers are available from 9 to 1. I know that's a 4-hour window, but like me, your guys, you shouldn't take the mentality that at 1 o'clock I am done, all right? School day is usually 7 hours. So I would factor in an hour or two at the end of that to immediately get into work. All right, stay on top of your stuff and don't get behind. All right, I know teachers are being flexible and lenient, but if you start to shift pieces everywhere, it gets jumbled up again. So if you're one of the 11 people that did not get this assignment done, all right, you can turn it in Wednesday at no penalty. But moving forward with work, I just want to make sure that we're clear in saying that anything turned in after the due date, okay, will be half credit. And so that's part of the reason why when we get into our assignment now, and I want to start to go over that, we're going to have a little bit of extra time. All right, so I'll explain how that'll work for Wednesday's class in a sec. But before we move on there, are there any questions, comments, or concerns about that? And if you have personal concerns, feel free to email me directly. We can talk that out privately. So I'll just pause for a second to see if anyone has any questions before we press on. The Eagles are Super Bowl champs, Nick. I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. Oy. This rain's getting my allergies big time. Well, Ryan, you don't have to record it. All right, that was just a recommended option if you have the ability to, if only because it might make it a little bit easier. So I know I put some links up on Classroom to 2 local stations that have a schedule of their live stream on their website. And so it made it a little bit easier for some people to figure out, okay, hey, Pix 11 does their 5 o'clock news live online. Cool. At 5 o'clock, I just know that's the hour that I'm going to say, all right, we're going to do that assignment. And then just take some notes as you're watching, be quick, but just jot some shorthand stuff down and then convert that to, that outline format that was given to you. Nick, you might be able to. I don't know. And if you have any links, throw them in the chat of news stations that put their entire news hour up online. If they do, that would be fantastic. I just didn't find any. Normally they piecemeal it because they'll get more clicks on 10 2-minute videos than 1 20-minute video. But a lot of local stations will do a live stream. A lot of the national ones tend to stream their around-the-clock coverage, which is a little bit different than the newscast that we should be looking for. So, Ryan, if that helps, awesome. Okay, cool. now that we're on the same page with that, I'm going to bounce over to our assignment for today. All right. Nick, I see your comment on the link, but I don't actually see the link. If it's not going to post in the YouTube chat, maybe just email it to me and I can take a look and then throw it in Classroom for everybody. Okay, so the assignment that we're going to start today, all right, is not anything outside the realm of what you've been doing in class so far, all right, but in trying to experiment with some very simple video work, all right, you are going to be shooting some video at home using your phones. All right. And so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bounce from my webcam to my desktop so I can run through the assignment. All right. I have learned that with my desktop cam, if I don't go full frame, then it tends to be a little bit better. So I will be bouncing back to check to make sure that the stream is still kicking. Right now, I've got excellent connections. So, and Alyssa, I just saw your email pop up on my screen. I didn't get a chance to look or read it yet. I will address that when we've got a little bit of downtime here. So, for this class, all right, we're going to be doing a class-wide news video project. All right, and there's going to be a couple different elements to this, but like I said, nothing that you haven't done in class before. The only addition that we're going to try this time around, all right, is adding the video component. So, all right, as a class, we're going to be putting together a news program. So each of you are going to be in charge of writing 3 news stories, all right, to report on, as well as taping yourself reading those stories using your mobile device. It's probably the best and easiest way to shoot that video, and I'll show you why in a second. All right. So, and Nick, I just got your email link. Well, you can see it on the screen there. I'll take a look at it and post that in Classroom. Thank you for sharing. So just like we did in class, all right, to your choosing, you're going to find news stories from the sources that you prefer, all right, to rewrite for news broadcast. You were going to tape those on your phone, and then you were going to turn in at the completion of this assignment, all right, your stories as a Google Doc, as well as, all right, your video upload of those news stories being read by you professionally like a news anchor. Okay, what I am going to do then is I'm going to take all those news stories and assemble them to be used as one master edit that I am going to share on social media and with the school, as a means to just make our work shown that we're still being productive as TV production students. Okay. So I do want to put a more lighthearted twist on this, okay? And so I kind of just have been calling it to myself the duck, duck, goose method. All right, it's just going to be a little bit less random. So what we're going to do, all right, is that we're going to report our stories in the order of our class roster. All right, and that way it's going to allow you as an anchor to thank the anchor that came before you and pass your story along to the person that would come after you. And if you just think about who you sit next to, all right, on your left or your right, you're going to thank that person on your left and you're going to pass it along to the person on your right. All right, I have this fully scripted for you in the next slide so I can show you. You can take that, copy it, paste it. That's perfectly fine. All right. So if you're on the ends, you have a little bit of extra legwork because you need to introduce the show and then close the show. All right. So Ryan, you're going to have to do our introduction, okay, as well as your stories and pass it on. And I'm going to put the list of our class roster up on Classroom as well. That's up there live. So you'll be able to know who comes before and after you. Cool. Okay. So here are your word tracks. If you were the first person, which, hey, Ryan, that's going to be you. All right. Your word track can be this. Feel free to modify this if you're so inclined, but it's a little tongue-in-cheek. Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Home News Network. I'm lead anchor Ryan Ahern, here with some news for a TV production project that has probably been long outdated, at which point you will get into your first story. All right. And then your second story, and then your third story, and then you're going to say, now with more, here's, and you would name the person to your right, which would be Nick. Nick is in the middle, as is most of the class. So Nick is going to say, thanks, Ryan. And then they're going to get into their three stories. And at the end, much like Ryan did, now with more, here's, and we're going to pass that along, which would be Luke. Now with more, here's Luke Bennett. Boom. And we're going to cut to Luke. Luke's going to say, thanks, Nick. And we're going to move around the room like that. Now, the person at the end of our list is going to thank the person that came before them, of course, read their three stories, of course, and then conclude our show. That will do it for today. On behalf of all of us here at Home News Network, good night and good luck. And then we'll fade out, and that'll be our news program for the day. I'm going to check in real quick to see if anyone has any questions on that so far. Excuse me. Okay, I'll check back to the chat in a bit. All right, we'll press on with the rest of this to make sure that we're rounding it out well. Okay, so here are your story stipulations. Okay, I said three, two of which I want you to do based on real current news stories. Now, as you said in the chat earlier, a lot of what's on television and in the news right now is a lot of the coronavirus stuff. But I want to try and do our diligence to find some information that is a little bit different. And if we have a lighthearted news story or news program, that's perfectly fine. But I didn't want to make it super difficult for anybody. So out of the two real news stories, if you want to cover coronavirus, we can, all right, but try and limit yourself to just one of those two stories. Ideally, it would be none, all right, which means if you want to start finding some soft news stories, remember the things that are still important and interesting, but not necessarily as current, as time sensitive, as urgent, as as newsworthy, as we would say in class, that's perfectly fine. We want to try and find some lighter-hearted stuff to balance out the heavy stuff, and I think because we're so encompassed with the heavy stuff day to day, that having a lighthearted news program would be perfectly okay. But I also understand it might be challenging to find those stories, so limit yourself to one coronavirus story if it's easy for you. If you find two stories that are not coronavirus you want to do, awesome, that would be fantastic. All right, so we're going to stick with our word counts, okay, which should relate to the time. One of those stories is going to be the 30 to 35 word story, all right, and one of those stories is going to be your 65 to 75 word story. So that between those two stories, we're going to get our 15-second news story and our 30-second news story. So that should be roughly around 45 seconds. And if we're thanking our anchor and passing along, that's going to be probably an additional 5 to 7 seconds. The last story I want you to do is less of a story at all, actually. I want you to give someone at Raritan High School a professional shout out. Professional meaning it's still going to be scripted, okay? But I want this to be someone involved with the school in some capacity. So not necessarily a specific friend or group of friends, but like if you want to give a shout out to a class or a teacher that you miss or just want to say hi to, your sports team or a coach. It could be a club advisor or a club at the high school, the principal or the nurse or a guidance counselor or heck, even your favorite lunch lady. Just someone at the building that you're kind of giving a hey, I miss you kind of thing to. I think could be a really nice gesture, and I think it would get people to watch our show. So I don't care much about the word count for this, but you do want to make sure this part is scripted. So if you are going to thank, Miss Marinelli, our school nurse, or give her a shout out, then perfectly fine. You just want to make sure that's part of your script. All right. If this ends up being an extra, this is the extra 10 to 12 seconds that we need to get us over that 60-second hump. Awesome. Because all said and done with your intro, where you're thinking of the previous anchor, your 2 real news stories, your 1 RHS shout-out story, and then your pass on to the other anchor, you should be hitting around 60 seconds, all right? I'm going to pause for a split second, go back to our chat to see if there are any questions there, as I'm realizing now you're not seeing what I'm seeing. My fault. Talking and switching at the same time is difficult, so I'm going to leave this up here, all right, and give you guys a second to ask questions. I apologize for not having the screen up. I feel like an idiot now. But I'm a one-man control room, so hopefully you can empathize a little bit. Would love a second monitor for this very reason. But alas, I'm one man and have a limited budget. By limited, I mean none. All right, so again, this is just the story stipulations. This will be posted on Classroom as well. All right, going to bounce back to the chat real quick. What if we have the same stories? Mike, I understand there's going to be some overlap, all right, in the content that you're covering, and that's a great question. But there's no way to know what someone, we're in class with 22 people. There's no way to know that you're going to write something that 21 other people haven't already found. And so I would worry less about that, mainly because while there is a chance that you're covering it from the same exact source, your interpretation of that as well as how you write that's going to be a little bit different. And so there is going to be some diversity in the stories that we tell, and that's part of the reason why I was hoping we'd find some, more human interest stories than some of the Corona stuff, because that's going to help diversify a little bit. So I understand where you're getting at, but it's just a product of, where we are. It'd be logistically a nightmare to try and figure out how we can organize this in a way where not everyone's covering the same story. Ryan, since I am first, it says reads first story. Am I just reading 1 story or 3? Ryan, you're still doing the 3 stories, okay? Your intro is just a little bit longer because you actually have to kick off the entire program. So the word track that I had in the presentation, steal and use that verbatim if you want. You can put your twist on it if you want, but I just put reads first story, meaning you're going to pause after that intro and then get into your first story. You're still going to read the other 2 stories as well and then pass it along to the person that comes after you. Okay, so here's the last little bit, all right? Your 3 stories with lead-in and send-off should be between about 60 to 90 seconds, and it's probably going to be closer to 60, but I wanted to give a little bit of a buffer there just in case some people read a little bit slower. We pause in between each story as we should, okay? When you're shooting, make sure, all right, you're using the rule of thirds in your shot. You're going to want to align yourself on one of those 2 all right, vertical lines in the rule of thirds. So if you're using your phone, turn on that grid so you can see, okay? Because I might want to put some graphics over your shoulder, for example, and I want the space to do that, okay? When recording on your phone, make sure, all right, you're recording in landscape mode, all right? If you hit record like this and turn your phone sideways, it will not be in landscape mode. You want to make sure your phone is in this mode, horizontal, all right, then hit record. And if you use, I know it might be tough to see, I'll see if I can zoom in on it here. If you use this reference here, this is how I set it up at home. This is where I'm working. I put links to online teleprompters in Classroom in that post for the assignment. And if you did the camera ops package for your news project, then you're familiar with these links. But essentially, you'll be able to copy and paste your story into them online, click a button, and boom, it becomes a teleprompter for you. The way that I did it was I just set my phone up at the bottom of my computer screen so I can hit record. and then press spacebar on my computer to start the teleprompter, and then I would essentially be reading the teleprompter while the camera was looking at me. And it's off a little bit just because I'm taking a picture with my iPad. So like this would be a very effective method. I tried experimenting with putting my computer up against a wall and then resting my phone on the top of the computer here, but my computer is very thin. Right, Chromebooks are a little bit thicker and flatter. It might be better there. But so that's what I did to make sure that it was recorded in an interesting way, while still looking professional and following the rule of thirds. All right, bonus points if you want to dress up for this. All right, so gents, if you want to throw on a shirt and tie, we'll throw a little extra credit your way. And then ladies, you have way more options in what you wear, but if we're going to go professional, then we can give some extra credit there. All right, so here's the last little bit of information, and then I'll check the chat to see if you guys have any questions. All right, your project is going to be due by the start of class on Friday. Okay, so what that means for you to turn in on Google Classroom, all right, is going to be a copy of your script, all right, which is your stories with links to the articles that you found, properly formatted, all right, using the 3.5-inch margin, all in caps, okay, numbers spelled out correctly, things like that, in addition to your one video file turned in before the start of class on Friday. So that's 2 class periods, all right, that we're going to have to do this. Now, I don't think it would take that long, but seeing as how it's a little bit different and we haven't done a video turn-in yet, I figured I would give us a little bit more time, okay? So what that means for Wednesday's class, Wednesday is going to be a very quick check-in at our start time. So at 11 o'clock, we'll check in real quick. I can answer any questions that people may have. If you want me to proof stuff, look at stuff, by all means, that's the time for it. All right, but it's going to be a rather quick class on Wednesday to make sure that you've got time then to get into the remainder of your project. So that's going to be it for right now. I'm going to go back to the chat. Whoops, overshot it. Bounce back here. All right, everything's still healthy. And oops, shoot. My apologies if that made a loud sound. All right, everything's still healthy and good. I'll just pause now to see if there's any questions in the chat. Actually, if you could, just do me a favor and drop your name in the chat one more time. Let me know that we're still here since some people had left. I'm going to get in the habit of trying to do that as well, just at the end of our classes, make sure that we're dropping names again to make sure that people aren't checking in and then leaving, as some folks did. Alyssa and Ryan are still here. Great. Okay. I know the project, it's not difficult or challenging. All right. It's in line with what we've been doing in class, but I understand the turn it in portion and the taping of yourself at home portion is a little bit different. And especially with trying to make sure that we're doing it in the right order. I just want to make sure that we spent some time to go over that. So what I'll do from here now, if no one has any questions, I'll hang in the chat for a little bit, but we'll say formally we are finished for today. Okay. Remember, we're going to do a quick check-in on Wednesday just to see how you guys are doing on the project, and then we're gonna bounce so that we give you that time to like you can literally on Wednesday in the morning, hey, Mr. Leonard, I'm here. I'm doing okay in the project. No questions. See you later. Gone. That's awesome. That would be fine. All right. But I'm going to make sure that I'm here for that hour for you guys in case you have any questions. All right. And of course, if you need to reference anything, the presentation was put on Classroom with the assignments, all right, as well as the class roster. And then you have this video to reference if you have any, like, oh, I forgot what he said about this. It's probably in that video, which is why I'm doing this on YouTube. But also you can email me, of course, with any immediate questions or concerns or issues that you have. Okay, so we'll wrap on today. I'll hang in the chat for a little bit to see if there's any questions. Otherwise, we'll do a quick check-in on Wednesday, projects due Friday, and then we'll move on from there. So thank you guys, and we'll see you next time. Bye.